If not, moving on. So today we're going to talk about a different type of factoring. So just to kind of recap, we've talked about 3 other types of factoring. By GCF, the greatest common factor, dividing out what they have in common. Grouping, where we're basically doing GCF but multiple times, but that only applies to 4 terms. Difference of squares, where we're looking for the perfect square that only has 2 terms, could have GCF, could not. And then this is the 4th type of factoring we're going to talk about, and then there's one last one which we'll talk about next class. So here we are going to be factoring trinomials, which means 3 terms. So everyone should have these notes in front of them. With our factoring trinomials, and you may remember this, you may not, and that's okay. I like to think about these like puzzles. Some of you may not like puzzles, and that may not be a good analogy, but I like puzzles, and it kind of works for me. You're thinking of what goes together, what can you put together, in that sense. So with your trinomial, it'll look something like this, where there is a number in front of x squared, but it's just 1. And then you'll have some b and some c. And our goal, the overall rule for this, is you're looking for what 2 numbers multiply to be c, and of those factors, could we add them together to get b? Okay, so we're going to figure out which of those work. So let's try this first one. For number 1, what are your factors of 12? What times what will give you 12?
1 and 12.
1 and 12. I'm going to write these off to the side.
2 and 6.
Beautiful. Now, if we're looking at all of those factors, that's all of them. If we were to add them together, I put 1 and 2, not 1 and 12. Anyway, which ones would give us 7?
3 and 4.
3 and 4. So our factors are going to be 2 sets of parentheses. Whatever the variable is, that's going to be your variable in both of them first. And then whatever sign these are, positive or negative, you're going to put that in with your factors. So x plus 3, x plus 4, or you can switch them. Does not matter. And those would be your answers. If you wanted to check them, you could distribute it back out like we have been doing. So x times x would give us x squared. X times 4 would give us 4x. 3 times x would give us 3x. And 3 times 4 would give us 12. And then if we combine our like terms, the 4x and the 3x, we would get the 7x. Which was our original, so that works. The check process is not necessary, just if you want to see it, did this work? Really for when we get into the negatives, that would be a good way to check yourself. What questions do we have so far? Eva, make sure you're writing this down. Alright, let's do another one. For number 2, what are your factors of 20?
1 and 20.
1 and 20, 2 and 10.
4 and 5.
4 and 5. Of those, if you added them together, which ones would give you 9?
4 and 5.
4 and 5. So then how would we write those 2 factors? N plus 4 or n plus 5, order doesn't matter, and then n plus 5. Correct. Questions on that one? Let's do another, and then we'll move on to another type. 5. What are your factors of 5? 1 and 5, and that's it. It's prime. So that is it. So how would we write those factors? Bless you. Okay, plus 1, okay, plus 5. If you want to think about these as like there are many rules, that you could use. If you see a plus and a plus, your answers are going to have a plus and a plus. Your factors are going to have a plus and a plus. So that's something you could keep in mind. Do you have any questions so far before we move on to the next type? In this next part, now we have a plus and a minus. So let's do 7. Disregard that it's negative for a second. What are your factors of 18?
1 and 18.
Yeah, that's it. Because 4 wouldn't work, 5 wouldn't work, and those are the closest. Right? So because your 18 is negative, the only way we multiply to get a negative is if one of your answers are negative. So we have to think about which one of these could we make negative that if we added them together would give us 3. If I made 1 negative and added it to 18, would that give us 3? No. What if I did it the other way? Positive 1 and negative 18?
No.
Okay. If I made negative 3 and positive 6? Yes. So you would write those factors as n minus 3 and n plus 6. So if you like the rules, if you have a positive and a negative, your C value is negative. That means one of your factors has to be negative, and it's going to be the smaller of the two. Alright, let's do another. Let's do 10. 10 has a lot. What are some factors of 54?
154.
Okay. 27, 6, and 9, yes. I think there's 1 or 2 more.
3 and 18.
Okay. Does 4 work? Okay. 5 wouldn't work. Does we got 6, 7, or 8? Okay. So then that's all of them. Think about these factors. And I meant to say this. If you think about your factors and you can immediately find the 2 that you need, you don't have to list out all of the factors. You don't have to list them out at all. But if listing them out helps you see it, helps you eliminate, you can definitely do that. So of those, one of them has to be negative. Which one could we make negative that when we added them together would give us positive 3? So negative 6. Okay. So S minus 6 and then S plus 9. That would work. Bless you. Questions on that? This lesson is going to go by quick, so if you're not writing this down or paying attention, you probably should be. Right, and then let's do 14. Factors of 6. 2 and 3, yes. 1 and 6. Which of those could we make negative? That has to be 5. Negative 1. Now this is one of the a type of problem that may get mistaken because 2 and 3, if you added them together, would give you 5. But one of them has to be negative, and if you don't make them negative, it won't work for the problem. So be careful with problems like this. So A minus 1 and A plus 6. Right. Questions about that so far? We're going to come back to these 4. Flip your page over. And then, so we were just doing plus plus or plus minus. We're now going to look for minus plus. and talk about those. Of those, pick which one you want to do first.
I guess 7.
Okay. So factors of 8. What are your factors of 8? Okay. 1 and 8, 2 and 4. Now with this type, since we multiply to get a positive, there are only 2 ways to get a negative. Let me rephrase that. If we multiply to get a positive, there are only 2 ways to get that. Either they're both positive or they're both negative. So if this is also negative, your 2 factors are going to be negative. So of those 2, which ones could we both make negative to get negative 6? So how would we write those factors? So if the rules are helping you, you can think about this like, if you have a negative b and a positive c, both of your factors are going to be negative. Questions on that one? Questions? Did you have a question, or were you not remembering it? Sorry. Okay. Okay, choose another one. 10 and you said 14. Someone said 14. Okay, you do both. So for 10, factors of 40. 1 and 40, 4 and 10. Someone said 2 and 20. Which of those could we add together to get negative 14? And they both have to be negative. So p minus 4, p minus 3. And then 14, factors of 56. Got 1 and 56. Okay, 7 and 8. 2 and 28.
4 and 14.
4 and 14. 5 wouldn't work. 6 I don't think would work. 3 wouldn't work. I think that's all of them. Okay, so of those, if we were to add them together, which one would give us negative 15?
7.
B minus 7, B minus 6. Yes, Precious. Because if we multiply to get 56, it's positive. The only 2 ways to get a positive number is if they're both positive or both negative. So this is positive. Our factors both have to be positive or both have to be negative. But in order to get a negative 15, they would both have to be negative. Other questions in this section? Flip back over to the front. And let's look at these last 4. Okay, so just to recap the 3 rules we've already talked about. Plus plus will give us both positive in our factors. A plus minus, one of our factors will be negative, the smaller one. A minus plus, both of them will be negative. So whatever is left will probably be this one. Right? Pick one of these 4. We'll do that one first. 18. Okay. So for 18, find factors of 72. So I'm not going to write them down this time. You think about the factors of 72. It's negative, so one of them have to be negative. And think about when you add them together, do they give you negative 14? What would those factors be? I mean, some factors you found.
172.
Okay, so let's start there. If I made one of those negative and added them together, would we get negative 14?
No.
No. So it's not that one. 18 and 4. Which one would be negative? 4. So if I did positive 4 plus, negative 4 plus 18, would that give us negative 14? Would that give you a negative 14? Okay, so then our factors would be x plus 4 and x minus 18. So this one is similar to the other one where your c value is negative. If you have minus minus, one of your factors is going to be negative, and the bigger of the two is going to be the negative. All right, let's do another one of those. Pick 15 through 17. 16, okay. So in 16, what are your factors of 3?
1 and 3.
1 and 3 is prime. So if one of them have to be negative, which one would be negative? 3, the bigger one. So a minus 3, a plus 1. Okay. Look at the questions we skipped over on this page, the questions on the back up to 19, I think. 18, up to 18. Find any you want to see, go over, have questions about, it looks challenging, you just want to see it done, any of those. If none, on the back, we're going to do a few problems from this section. So all of the problems we've done so far have been trinomials where a equals 1, so we didn't have to worry about this, but sometimes that will not be the case. Sometimes you'll have an a that is not equal to 1, but that's just because there's a GCF. Sometimes there'll be an a that's not 1, and there's not a GCF, and we'll talk about how to do that next class. So for 19, does this have a GCF? And what is that? It would be 2. So if we're dividing everything by 2, what would be left?
A squared.
Minus.
4k.
Minus.
45.
Then we're just focusing on the inside. This page is not good. Okay, we can do that. Sure, that feels better. So just focus on what's inside the parentheses, and it's just like what we were just doing. So think about your factors of 45.
145.
I'm not going to write them down, but you think about them. What else?
315.
3 and 15 would also work. Would, if we added them together, would we get -4 if one was negative? So what else? 5 and 9. Which of those would need to be the negative? 9. I didn't mean to do that. So k minus 9, k plus 5. You would bring down the 2 that you factored out. Then to check yourself, you do a couple different things. Multiply the 2 here, distribute it, then distribute it here. You could distribute these 2 first, and then multiply it by 2. You could multiply the 2 to the k plus 5 out of order, and then multiply it back to this. That does not matter. The only thing that would matter is if you forget to bring down your 2 and you try to check this, you're going to get a different answer. So be careful with that. Okay. Questions on that process? How we got that answer? Anything like that? For the next one, what is that GCF? Or does it have one, and what is it? X. So if we divide out x, what's left?
X squared.
Plus
2x.
Minus. Think about your factors of 48. One of them has to be negative. Which factors would, if one is negative, add to the 2? Which one would be negative? Negative 8 plus 6 would give us positive 2. Negative 6. So x minus 6, x plus 2. Okay. If you're not sure, double check it in your calculator. Because if you were to switch those and put minus 8 and plus 6, you would not get the same thing. Questions on that one? Right. And then 21, GCF of that.
4.
It is 4. General rule for when A is supposed to be equal to 1, but it doesn't. Whatever that first number is usually your GCF, unless it doesn't have one, then it's a variable. So if we divide everything by 4, what's up?
W squared.
Minus.
13.
Minus. Think about your factors of 30. One of them has to be negative. That when you add them together, you get negative 13.
And 3.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. If I had just 10 and 3, yes, it would give me 13. Or if they were both negative, it would give me negative 13, but only one of them can be negative. So that would not give me negative 13. That is a common mistake that you may run into, that you'll think of numbers that should work because of the 13 or something like that, but because of the negatives, it does not. So think of something else. 2 and 15, which one of those would need to be negative? 15. So W minus 15 and W plus 2. That would make our negative 13 and our negative 30. So be careful with problems like that. Do we have any questions in 22 through 24, or maybe you found one from the previous that you still want to see, go over, have questions about? Before I let you practice, I'm going to mention this. I think in the coming week or two, Potential failure letters are going to be sent out. This is, you may have failed the class in general. Some of you may not get this. This is just a warning to some of you that do get it. Some of the things that are checked on it, because I didn't make this, I just check off what applies to you. Missing tests, low quiz or test grades, absences, missing assignments. So if any of those things apply to you, like you haven't finished your test, or you're missing Khan Academy quizzes, or you're absent a lot, any of those, try to fix that. Because if you don't fix that, you may be at risk to fail this class. So keep that in mind. During this practice time, you can easily get, with the last 50-ish minutes we have, all of the Khan Academy for this done. So you really don't have an excuse as to why it wouldn't be done after today. So work on that. And then if you need more practice, you can use this. After Khan Academy, if you want to finish your tests, need to do retake work, need help with Khan Academy, come see me. Use this time wisely. You have this time to practice.